everyone to the non-mass sales reporting portal reporting and payments training. This is a training that we offer on a monthly basis. So if you missed this one, or if you have somebody else who would like to attend that couldn't make it today, these are on a monthly cadence. It'll happen again next month and every month thereafter until I think the end of the fiscal year. We might, keep it going after that as well. This training is specifically catered to non-mass contractors that have to report in SRP now. Some of these contract vehicles are new in SRP. They started out in SRP. Others are being transitioned into SRP from the legacy CPRM system. So if you're either one of those in those categories, this training's for you. This is for non-mass and not mass, right? That's an important distinction there. Mass multiple award schedule is the traditional GSA contract that's always been in that's been in SRP for a very long time. Non-mass is everything other than mass that's being transitioned in or being built into SRP now. So it is, it deserves a little attention on how to get things right in SRP. My name is Han Zhao. I am the Division Director for IDV Supplier Compliance under ASD. I will be leading this training. I have a few other co-hosts that are in this training as well, providing resources in the chat. You can see there the resources are linked, including this slide, right? So that's the first question I'm sure everyone has. Where do I get this presentation? It's posted in the slide. So this resource is already available to you, along with some other bits of information as well. A few housekeeping rules. It's just me today, primarily, right? So any questions or concerns you have, I would ask you to hold off until the end of the presentation and to use the Q&A pod to post those questions. I will go back and review those questions at the end and answer them if I can, right? So all that being said, I will now turn off my video for the sake of bandwidth and continue on with the training. All right, so this presentation is actually pretty condensed. I mean, it's a long presentation, but for what it is, it's still pretty condensed because the primary focus is on how to report your task orders, how to then report your monthly invoicing, and then how to pay your CAP. It's a very logical sequence of events there. The software in SRP isn't perfect. We are encountering some issues and fixes, right? We do rely on you, the user, to bring these to our attention so we can put in those fixes to the IT people, and then making the experience much better. So we do ask for your support and input and patience and help into making the system better. So it should be working well with everyone's help. So we start off with a quick table of contents, which is kind of listed there. You can refer to them at your leisure. For support inquiries, right, we have two email addresses. The first one, the reporting inquiries at gsa.gov. That is the email address for all the traditional GWACs contracts. All right, so this is VETS2, Alliance, STARS. These types of vehicles all go to the reporting inquiries at gsa.gov. Those of you who have GWACs should be pretty familiar with that email address. For the Oasis Plus contractors who are already in SRP, there is the Oasis Plus SRP at gsa.gov email address, which you would reach out to in case you have any questions or concerns about your sales reporting. Now, for all technical issues, reach out to the Vendor Support Center. They're the ones systems people who would manage SRP for us. So things like logging in, right, systems issues, reach out to Vendor Support. We did provide a link in the chat there for additional resources. So if you click on that, it takes you to this page. So notice right away, right, this is actually the Oasis Plus page. However, the resources are pretty universal, especially regarding the sales reporting portal, the SRP. So here we have, the SRP user guide, just SRP in general. We have this slide deck We have the category mapping. This is actually pretty important for order entry if you're doing it manually. It's an Excel spreadsheet that someone on my team put together that crosswalks all the fields from your award document into the fields in SRP that you have to enter. And so this simplifies the process a whole lot easier for you if you do the manual entry into SRP. So and the categories on your award documents should be more or less the same for each contract vehicle, right? There's a few small differences, but things like peer to performance, etc., right? Those fields are easily located and are universal for all award documents and is required on all orders and SRP. Okay, so be sure to use that. We'll get the SRP user manual, which you can click on here, or you can actually find at the landing page for SRP. So if we go to the SRP landing page, under this little help tab, you see the GSA Online Help. You click on that, it takes you to this tab. You open up GWAC MAC, which is our contracts, the contract that pertains to non-mass. And we have all the same categories here, right? We have task order management, reporting your data, adjusting your data, paying the fees. The same information I'll be presenting here, but at a much more detailed level and with screenshots. So, how to adjust your sales, for example, step-by-step instructions with screenshots on where to click, what to fill out, right? So this is the definitive user guide. What I'm presenting here is more abbreviated version of mostly what's shown here. Okay, so use that as your leisure. All right. So some reporting requirements. So we'll start with GWAC. We'll start with MAC, right? We'll start with the Oasis Plus. This table is on all your solicitations. The key takeaway here is 30 days, right? 30 days to report your sales at the end of every calendar month, 30 days to remit your CAF at the end of every calendar quarter. That format is pretty universal for most non-mass contracts. There's small variations here and there, but it's usually that, right? 30 days at the end of the month, you report your invoice. 30 days at the end of the quarter, you remit your CAF that's owed. 30 days, that's the magic number. 30 days, not 31 days. That 31st day at the end of the month or at the end of the quarter makes that report or that payment late, right? So best practice right up front, try to do it a few days before the 30th, right? That's the best way to go about this. So the same kind of requirements apply to GWAC contracts as well. Now, GWACs has many contracting families here. So they're all listed here. The ones highlighted at the top there, Polaris and Alliant 3, are born in SRP. So they're already in SRP. They were built in SRP. The ones that follow behind are going to be migrated soon, if not already. Vets 2, I know, is already being migrated into SRP with Alliant 2 stars and stars 2 to follow. And the requirement there is listed thusly, right? Monthly invoices or quarterly invoices in the case of, say, Alliant 2 or Alliant 3. But again, it's 30 days at the end of that quarter, right, to report your invoices, or 30 days at the end of the month to report your invoices in the case of Vets 2 and Stars 3. But it's quarterly payments for CAF on most of them, monthly CAF payments on Stars. So, I mean, there's variations on the same thing for different for these different contract families, but it's all within that 30-day time frame again, right? 30 days, end of the month, end of the quarter. CAF rate for GWACs are mostly set at 0.75, and that is pretty much the differences listed there. Okay, that's just kind of, I mean, those of you with GWAC contracts, legacy ones, should understand that, this is what you've been doing all along in CPRM anyway, right? We're just going to be doing it in SRP the same way. So system access, let's start with that. Getting into SRP itself, right? So FAS is moving everything into SRP. It functions very much like CPRM that you already have in Assist, and mass contracts, like we said before, is already in SRP, right? So that's why non-mass is following suit and going into SRP as well. It's used to report task orders, invoices, modifications, remit your CAF. Again, all the same things that you do in CPRM, we now do in SRP. We want to make sure you have access to SRP. So those of you who say has a traditional mass contract who already has access to SRP, might not have access to SRP for your non-mass contracts. And the reason for that is you might not be listed as a point of contact for or an authorized negotiator for your non-mass contract. Those of you in CPRM being migrated over, the information in CPRM is going to get pulled into SRP. So if you are a point of contact already listed in CPRM and you get pulled into SRP, you will be listed as an authorized negotiator. Make sure that information is clean and correct. Those of you who need to be added on as additional points of contact on SRP, you can reach out to your CO, make a request that you will need to be added on. For those of you who do not use FedConnect, right? FedConnect is an Oasis Plus tool to get authorized negotiators added on. So for Oasis Plus contractors or those who use FedConnect, might be some of the newer ones that are already built into SRP, use FedConnect, get added on as an authorized negotiator. A contracting officer will then enter that system, that information into COM, and that will then populate in SRP, and then you should have access. Those of you who don't use FedConnect, right, mostly the ones that are migrated over from CPRM, reach out to your CO, request that you get added on as an authorized negotiator under SRP, and then they will be able to get that pushed through with the help of the SRP help desk. Once you are an authorized negotiator, on the SRP landing page, there's this big blue button, right, that says register. You must register yourself. When you get added on, another key point is make sure your email is 1,000% correct, because that's what the registration is pulling from. The multi-factor authentication code that gets sent out to you to log in gets sent out to that email address, right? So just make sure your email is correct when you get added on, and then that registration should be good to go, okay? All right, so once you register, you're either successful or you're not, and here are the error screens, right? And notes, right? This is kind of what I said before about using COM and FedConnect, right? If you're Oasis Plus or your contract is built in SRP, like a Polaris, those of you who are coming home from CPRM, you would need to reach out to your CO or just to make sure whatever's listed in CPRM is good, and then you get pulled over that way. Okay. All right, so here we have the landing page. The landing page looks something like this for you once you log in. And a key thing to note here is that all your contracts are listed here. Very important. If we're taking action on a contract, make sure we're selecting your non-mass GWACs or Oasis Plus contract. Make sure it's not a mass contract. If we start taking action on a mass contract, because all your contracts will be listed in SRP from now on. If you click on a mass contract by accident and you start taking action on it, it would be very difficult to adjust or to modify that action to then switch it to the non-mass contract that you meant to take action on. Right, that's just a quick reminder on that. All right, so at the top of the screen, you can see, well, there's these three boxes here. So in our example, these are just reminder dates. I think they're helpful little resources there, right? So in our example, we can see that the calendar date is July 22nd, 2024, right? So if it's July, towards the end of July, and remember our requirement is to pay and to report at the end of the quarter, end of the month, because it's July 22nd, monthly reporting, right, will be due by the end of the month, right? So well, monthly, 30 days at the end of the month, end of June, rather. End of June, you have until the end of July, well, the 30th of July, to remit, to report your sales for the monthly reporting. And also, it just so happens to coincide with the end of the second quarter, 30 days, right, at the end of the second quarter, calendar quarter for 2024, and so that date is also July 30th. So basically what these running banners offer is a reminder of the deadline to repay and to report. So just a key little tool there to refer to as you're in SRP. All right, so let's start with the first thing that we were going to talk about, which is getting your task order into SRP. Okay, so there is two ways to do that. We're going to cover the first way, and then then we'll cover the more tedious second way. The first way is for the data to flow from either FPDS or Assist. All right, and typically these would be require a few additional fields to be entered by you, the contractor, but not much more. So FPDS is where the contracting officer goes to enter their order. I know it's sam.gov now. We'll refer to it as FPDS. It's still technically FPDS, but it shows up in SAM, if that makes any sense at all. So, it's SAM/FPDS. Now, typically it flows through from FPDS. There is a note at the bottom here in red. If for whatever reason you have a special order, if you have a special reason for a special order that does not get put into FPDS because it cannot be put into FPDS because it is special. Now, I've said that word 5 times now. So if you have a special order, you will know what I'm talking about. And there's a reason I'm calling it a special order and not the other word, because we shouldn't say the other word, right? So if you have a 3-letter agency, that is still reportable, right, under your Oasis or your Oasis Plus or your GWAC contracts, you still need to get that into the system. There is a special way to put that into the system. Reach out to Christy Irvin to discuss how to get that done. She's our subject matter expert on all things special, and she will help you get that done. Okay. But otherwise, right, if it's just a normal order, all these fields get populated into SRP from FPDS. So on the FPDS column, you see things like contract number, UEI, order number, order description, etc. All these fields that are checked get pushed in from FPDS into SRP. So these get pre-populated for you, and the required fields in SRP are listed here. So there are a few fields here that you will have to still type in, like location or domain CLIN, that doesn't come in from FPDS. So, there's like about a half a dozen fields for you to type in. Not that bad, right? Not that bad at the end of the day. Once it comes in, Assist, very similar as well. Assist orders also come in through FPDS, and it populates a little bit more, right? You can see the fields that it gets to populate. What's important now is once that comes in, we will need for you to double check, make sure all the fields are good, fill in the ones that are missing. Like we said, like about a half dozen of them are missing. There's this little radio button you click at the top there when you click on the order, and that's to request the changes to lock fields. Once you click that, all the fields unlock and you can make changes. So if, say, for example, the data fields that came in from FPDS is not 100% clean, or you disagree with one of the fields, or maybe the contracting officer got the date wrong, right? You can make that change by clicking on this, right? Once you make the change, make sure you get all the data fields cleaned up, and we have to submit it for validation, right, at the end of the day, right? So that's how the data push is supposed to work. And typically FPDS orders should go in within 3 days, and 3 days after that get pushed in from FPDS into SRP. Shouldn't be a problem. Okay, and just double check it, submit it for validation. Adding a new task order, same way, right? Same way data push comes through. New task orders, right, needs to get into SRP within 30 days, right, to report and to pay. Same thing with mods. So adding new task orders, adding mods, all very similar. So when we add a new task order, the manual way, which is the way I'm going to cover now, you would select add a new task order option, punch in your contract number, select a domain, similar to this screenshot here, right? You select a contract number for your non-mass, select a domain. For those of you that are in Oasis Plus, domain is a thing. For those of you at GWAC, some of you don't have domain names, so that wouldn't be an issue, right? That wouldn't be an option. And then SRP will start auto-populating some fields, contractor name, SAMUEI, right? And then you notice a bunch of other fields that are listed here not being populated. So these are free text fields, right, that you can input. There are some drop downs, right, that helps, so such as domain CLIN. Those are, helpful things to have a free drop down for. And then the rest you have to fill with that PDS. So this brings me to that resources page, this crosswalk, right? This crosswalk will help you understand what's on this FS 1449 award document should go where in SRP. Okay, so there's no guesswork there. So that's crosswalk is being provided for you. It's a great resource. I recommend everybody download it and just have it in their back pocket. And then, the fields will look like this that you have to populate. All right, at the end, make sure you attach your task order, right? We would like to see all award documentation be attached to the actual order. Give it a good name, upload it. It'll show that. If you uploaded the wrong thing, you can obviously make changes, right? Delete. And very important, scroll all the way to the bottom. At the very bottom of the page of each task order is this button called Submit. If that button is available, you must submit it for validation. If that means after you've gone through and made the changes that you need to make and you've done everything you thought was correct, when you submit that, it comes to people in my office and we take a look at all the information and validate it once more. It's a way of, quality assurance, if you want to think about it that way, to make sure that the information is clean, it's correct. So always scroll to the bottom, see if you can submit it. If it does need submission, that means it requires validation. Okay. All right, so that being said, let me do a quick live demo. Switch over to my test environment. So if we go under task order management, if we add a new task order, right, add new task order, add new mod, and work pretty much the same way. You add a new task order, select the contract, let's do an alliance, and things pre-populate for me already, right? So then I can start and type in the order number, order description, right? Predominant contract type, fixed price, fill in the blanks according to my contract document, add my attachments here, right? That's what that is. Scroll down and submit. Submit for validation once I'm done, right? The same kind of thing can be done for, this is Oasis Plus, right? Oasis Plus has this extra field for domain. So, right, engineering domain, again, same type of information. We got order number, etc., funding amount, right? Attachments and submit at the bottom here. All right, so, but for orders that come in from FPDS, that get, so things that are not manually inputted that gets pushed in from FPDS, they reside under this review task order mods option. We'll come back to this in a little bit. I'll emphasize it again, but it'll be listed here, and then it would require an action for you to review and then submit for validation. It's very similar to the other process that we've shown before with the adding of the new task order. The only difference there is that you don't have to enter all the fields from the beginning. Okay, so that's really the only difference there. The data push makes life supposedly a little bit easier. All right, so adding on new mods, same kind of thing, right? Mods get pushed in and mods can be added manually as well. So adding a new mod will look like this, right? Contract number, but the mod is now tied to a task order. So you would select the task order. The left-hand column that you see here is pre-populated from the base task orders information. So you don't touch that information at all. Whatever you entered prior for the base task order gets pre-populated on that left-hand column. The right-hand column, right, with its mod number, mod type, etc., description, that's what you fill in, or that's the data push that comes through. The typical naming convention for mods is P0000, right? P with 4 zeros, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Be sure to make sure that the mod numbers match, right? Because that's how ultimately the data push will recognize that at a later date, right? Now when the information gets into FPDS. As with task orders, right? Attachments, mod, all the subsequent attachments for the mod, the SF50s, SF30s, what have you, all go in as attachments with your mods as well. So we have that supporting documentation, give it a name, submit it for validation, right? Upload it, make adjustments, submit it for validation, so we can QC that mod again. So, all right, another live demo, still under task order management, right under add new task order is add new mod, right? So it's the same file path. Let's do alliance, task order, right? And you see that the dummy task order that I had in there before, it pre-populates in the left-hand column, right-hand column, task order mod number, etc. Right? You would fill in, make attachments, and submit for validation. Same thing with Oasis Plus mods. If we select my dummy Oasis Plus contract, we do the contract and then we go to the task order, and the associated task order gets updated here. And again, same information, upload files, submit for validation. And the review task order mods option down here is for the data push. Mods that come in from FPDS, right, directly will show up here along with your task orders. And you can see here I have a variety of these mods and base task orders. Base task orders always have that /0 to denote, 0, that's the base, and then following 1, 2, 3 for the mods, right? Okay. All right, so manage task orders for the review task order mods. This is the thing that I've been kind of hammering on this whole time. It's important because, right, this is the screen I showed before. When a new task order or a new mod comes in from FPDS, it shows up here, right? It shows up here, and there's a few things to know. Now, there is the task order status, and then there's the action column. You see the task order status, every single task order status or mod status should be in non-mass accepted mode. Non-mass accepted means that the task order, the mod is clean, you can report on it, right? It's selectable in SRP. If it shows anything other than non-mass accepted, that means some sort of action is still pending or required before it can make it through QC, before you can select it to take action in SRP, which includes sales reporting. So you notice that with non-mass accepted, the associated action there is view task order. So you can only view this task order if it's already been accepted. If it's non-mass rejected, such as the first example, or a new task order, right, that came in from FPDS, such as the last one on this list, you notice that the associated action there is to manage task orders. So if you have a managed task order action that you can take, that means you need to go through, validate all the fields, make sure all your I's are dotted and T's are crossed, add your attachments, and submit for validation. Only after it's been validated will it appear in non-mass accepted status. Okay, so that's very important. When you get a new task order and you said I got awarded a task order, I can see it on this list, but I can't find it anywhere else in SRP. That's why you must manage that task order, review the fields, and submit it for validation because it came in as a new task order that needed you to go through and check all the fields and submit for validation. Okay. If you enter your mod or your task order as a manual entry, what the system automatically does is defaults that to non-mass accepted status until at a future date, the contracting officer enters the information into FPDS, and then the data push comes through, right? And then it makes a comparison between what FPDS has and what you entered. Then it will change from non-mass accepted status to non-mass review status, right? So the status can change in that instance. So best practice, every time you log into SRP, which, on your monthly cadence or quarterly cadence or what have you, double check this list. Just click on review task order mods, see if anything that was in there used to be non-mass accepted, or it got changed, or a new order came in that you need to take action on. So this is the place to start, right? To clean it up before you're unable to find your task order. Okay, so um, here's a list of all the definitions. Again, non-mass accepted is what we want at the end of the day. That's the last definition. All the other definitions are just variations on rejections or things that need action, right? So take a look at that when you get the slide, and we have a quick decision tree, right? How process flow of how orders come in. Key takeaway here is that the end nodes are all non-mass accepted. Okay, so this is how the processes work. All right, so now we're reporting sales. So we got our task orders in SRP, right? One way or another, it's in SRP. Now we can report on our sales. Very important, any missed sales must be reported first before the current period can be reported. Meaning if you missed a month or two worth of sales, you can't report today's sales until you go back and report those old sales first. It's a sequential thing, right? You can't skip the line on that one. 30 days to report and to pay, right? So we're on that 30 again. There's two ways to report sales in SRP. That is form entry and file upload. You'll see these two options pop up over and over again under this tab. So there's form entry, file upload for reporting your sales, form entry, file upload to close out your sales, form entry and file upload to adjust your sales, etc. Right? For you new contracts, right? For any new contracts out there, there is no requirement to report any sales if no task orders were awarded. You start reporting your sales as soon as the first task order gets awarded, not the first sale, the first task order, right? You could have a task order awarded, but no activity under that task order, in which case you will start reporting the zeros. But if you have no task orders awarded, there is no requirement to report sales, because all non-mass report at the task order level, not the contract level. That is one of the key differences between non-mass and mass. Okay, so no sales for non-mass, no task orders for non-mass means no sales needs to be reported. If you have a task order that's old, you report on that one, right? So we're going to cover form entry first. So you click form entry, select the contract number, make sure you select the right one. And things pre-populate in this order entry data, form entry, right? Previous sales must be reported before the currents gets reported, right? So we know that already, just as a reminder listed there. And other things get pre-populated, CMUEI and such. And we come to the bottom here where we populate the invoice number, pay date, the associated task order number. Keynote here, if that task order at that dropdown is unselectable, you cannot find the task order you want to report on, go back to your review task order mods option, right, under task order management, because likely it needs action, right? It needs to be submitted for validation. Zero invoices. Zeros must be reported, right? If you receive no payments for your task order for the particular period, you must still report a zero. For you monthly contract reporters, the naming convention we prefer is zero invoice, the month plus the year. Quarterly, follows a similar pattern, zero invoice, quarter plus the year. You can view the task order statuses, make deletions, right? You can fill in the fields. All invoices must include that omnipresent cap line, DOO, right? The sin CLIN is DOO. Every single invoice must have a CAF line, even the $0 invoices. It'd just be a $0 CAF line, but it must be in there, right? So if I see 5 invoices, 5 CAF lines, and every invoice might have multiple lines, but the most basic invoice will still have 2 lines. One is a firm fixed price line or a $0 line, and the second line must be a CAF line, right? So that's something to keep in mind. Right, so we kind of hammer that home, and then we submit the invoice once we enter all the information. Click through everything, and you can submit it. And as a double check, you can see here that we have the SRP CAF versus the CAF CLIN. SRP CAF traditionally is what is known as the estimated CAF. It's a system calculated number based on all the other line items that are not CAF. The system takes that and tallies up the total, multiplies it against the appropriate CAF rate. And then the CAF CLIN is the CAF that you have invoiced the customer, or in other words, that DOO line item that you put in 9 times out of 10, 9.9 times out of 10, those two numbers should be exactly the same, right? So this is a double check for you to make sure that is the case. Okay. And yes, you can submit for multiple invoices under multiple, you can submit multiple invoices for the different task orders, so you don't have to click back and forth. You just add based on invoice number, make sure they're unique based on the task order number. You can delete invoices and see that it gets populated on your landing page. All right, so quick demo on that is under reporting, form entry, select your contract number. Let's do Alliant. Right, you can type in your invoice number, pay date, task order number, right? And you can see here I added a dummy invoice, the SIN cleanse, right? The labor categories, if this is T&M type of contract, I can select the appropriate labor categories. Or if it's zero invoice, it's FOO. If it's firm fixed price, it's HOO, right? So I added the omnipresent CAF line. Every invoice needs to have a CAF. The line ID doesn't matter, right? That's up to you, however you want to order it, make sure it makes sense. CAF line is always there. And once you select the CAF line, the rest of this auto-populates. What you do have to enter is the unit price and the rest of these fields as appropriate, right? And then you submit this invoice when you're done, or you can save it and come back to it later, okay? All right. All right, so form entry, form entry, you can also adjust your data the same way. Once you select your contract number, you select the contract, select the period, and then the task order, and you can make changes to the fields. And, if you need to make a sales adjustment, you put in the wrong number, you need to go back and change that. Whatever you input here will replace the previous number, and then the differences there will show if there's a credit or if there's additional CAF that's due. And then a brief questionnaire there follows. How did you discover this error? What were the reasons, and what preventative steps would be taken in the future? So you can answer those as appropriate. All right, so file upload is very, very similar to form entry. The only difference is this is a template. This is like an Excel template. You can download this template. Make sure you use the third tab, which is the GWAC MAC tab that's highlighted there. And you input all the same information, but in this Excel spreadsheet. So unlike the form entry, this Excel spreadsheet is a free text field. We want to make sure you enter the right information. If there's data issues or data errors, the file will get rejected, and I'll tell you why, and then you have to make corrections. So this method makes sense if you have many task orders that are, that vary very slightly from month to month. It might be more difficult, more tedious to input this information as file as form entry every month. It might just be easier to have a template in place where you make slight adjustments every month to upload. I leave it up to you, right? Whatever you feel is better for your process, you can feel free to utilize. The important thing here is to make sure, again, use the third tab, the GWAC MAC data tab, and 2, to do nothing but enter information on here. No formulas, no macros, nothing, right? No colors. I only color coded this here, so you have a visual reference of what I mean. And so I, demonstrated with 3 different colors here. The blue is a firm fixed price type invoice. The pink is a T&M type invoice, and the green is a $0 invoice on 3 different task orders. You notice all 3 of them have that DOO CAF line, right? And the rest of the information is typed in manually. Okay, so this is something you want to create, you want to use, keep a file, keep a copy of it, make slight changes every month, give it a different name every month, and upload it accordingly. Right, so you would select file upload, and under the reporting tab, you can download the template, right? So there's your template there. Give it the reporting period, and then you upload it. Give it a name and upload it. Now, if it gets rejected, right, it'll tell you why, and you have a chance to correct it and make that change as needed. And so what it looks like is under reporting, you do the file upload method, right? Select the appropriate period, right? Browse for your template, upload it here, or you can download the template down here, and it'll look very similar to what I just shown before, right? Don't do anything, again, don't do anything to that. Don't move around the cells. Don't, change, don't delete tabs. Don't do anything other than input data. Otherwise, the file will get rejected. A little testy, but, once you get it going, it works well. All right, so adjustments work the same way. You would basically upload a new file. That new file you upload replaces the existing file. So it's best practice to just keep a folder with all your old reports in there so you can refer back to it just in case there's discrepancies or questions at a future date. And the same three questionnaires will follow thereafter because of the adjustment. All right, so we have task orders in, we have invoices reported. Now let's make payments for CAF. And it falls under the payments tab, right? No surprise there. CAF rates are different for each different GWACs. For Oasis Plus, it's 0.15. For most of the GWACs, it's 0.75. Might be some MOUs in there, but for the most part, that's what it is. So going through, you would select a contract number. It'll show you the outstanding balance. You select the appropriate months or quarters that you want to make payments for. You have the due date listed there. Driving home this point again, SRP CAF is the system estimated CAF. CAF CLIN is the CAF that you invoiced the customer, which they paid. Other is neither here nor there. Very few far in between, really for maybe closeouts or something to that effect, right? Extenuating circumstances. Typically, we don't use that. As a best practice, again, default to the CAF CLIN. Reason being, CAF CLIN is what is paid to you by the customer. You as the contractor shouldn't hold on to that money. It should be forwarded, to GSA for CAF. That's the logic behind that. But again, 9 times out of 10, SRP CAF and CAF CLIN should be one and the same. So use your best judgment there. Click through and go to pay. And what it does is, at this point, it will take you to what looks kind of like pay.gov. And in fact, it is pay.gov. The important takeaway is this. Do not ever go to pay.gov directly to remit your CAF. Always click through SRP. By doing so, it makes the connection between pay.gov, the payment, and SRP, your contract or your task order. Okay, if you go to pay.gov directly, you remit your CAF, that money is lost in a black hole somewhere, and there is no connection that we can make between whatever that payment is and which contract it belongs to. I cannot emphasize this enough. Please utilize SRP when you remit your quarterly payments or your monthly payments. Use SRP, right? Click through to get to this point. Don't go straight to pay.gov to do this. So that being said, we have a few payment options. Select the best one for your needs. The limits are there. PayPal if you want $10,000. Debit or credit, I think, is capped at a penny under 25. Bank ACH is unlimited. And then you fill in your information, click on through, and the payment should be then received, right? And then you would have no balance. Payments that are pending aren't completed yet, right? This goes back to that 30-day pending. If it's pending a day after 30, that payment can be considered late. So again, best practice, try to do it a few days before if you know what the payment is already. And then we have some statuses that show you what that is. Okay. All right, so to wrap it up, we're almost at the end here. Civilian orders, right? Wait for the mod or the order to come through from FPDS. Typically 3 days. That's the best way, the cleanest way. DoD orders that might take longer than a few days, maybe even longer than that to come over from FPDS. You can enter it in the manual manner that I showed you, utilizing the resources that we have to help you along that process. Verify the accuracy before submitting for validation to minimize delays. That's less QCing on our end that we have to do, right? When we see the discrepancies. Have the award documentations available to upload, right? So have that in PDF form, right, on your computer, ready to go. It just makes life a lot easier. Ensure that your customer's been issued a delegation of procurement of authority. That's for Polaris, right? Maybe that's Polaris specific. Used to submit payment button to make payments issued through CAF contract and task orders, right? That's again, that's related to the payments instructions that I just touched upon before. Make sure multiple people are listed and familiar with the system. So in case you go on vacation, your coworker can step in and log in and have access to the system to make the payments. And make sure your program emails do not go into the junk folders, right? So our reporting inquiries at gsa.gov for GWAC and Oasis Plus SRP at gsa.gov for O plus type contracts, right? And try to respond to our inquiries within 48 business hours. All right, that brings us to the end. Walking it over, not too bad. If you missed it, if you have a question that you missed or you wanted to get more of this again, next month, same time, same place. Thanks, everybody.